Hi everyone, the tomatoes are finally here, and so we wanted to give you a video regarding some things to look for when you're picking out your heirloom tomatoes. Typically we have tomatoes in about the beginning of August, even mid-July, late July, so this year's been really late. So they're just starting to hit their flush now, and you should be getting lots of tomatoes in the next weeks here. And so I wanted to kind of give you a crash course on what to look for when you're dealing with the heirloom tomatoes. When we're harvesting the big heirlooms, which would be Brandywines, Prudence Purple, and Rose de Burns, typically we will harvest them at what's called first blush. So the tomato's green, and then as soon as it starts to change color, getting some pink on it or orange or something like that, we'll take it off the vine. And the reason for that is because tomatoes don't hold their shape well when they're on the vine. They split and crack easily if we get a thunderstorm or something of that nature. They also have better flavor, tend to, when they're taken off the vine, because they're not exposed to any more water, and so the tomato flavor gets a little bit more concentrated. So when you're picking them out, you'll find ones that are varying stages of ripeness, and you can use that to your advantage if you're not planning to use the tomato right away. Like here would be an example of a Brandywine that's not quite ready. It's firm, it's got green on it still, it's a pale color. Here's an example of a Brandywine that's ready to eat right now. You could slice it open tonight. It's nice and soft. It's got color all the way up to the shoulders. The most important criteria that you want to look for when you're gauging the ripeness of the heirlooms is actually the texture, because the color can be a little bit difficult to tell sometimes. For example, here on the Prudence Purples, they kind of have a grayish green shoulder, and they don't ever really lose that, but they will get soft when they're really ready to go. So here's one that's not quite all the way ready. You could cut it, but you kind of have an option of letting it get a little bit more ripe. This one here would be one that's really actually quite ripe, ready to go, but it's still got green there, and it's kind of got this grayish purpley color, which is where it gets the name Prudence Purple, but it's real soft on the bottom. So that one is ready to eat. Rose de Burns is a nice kind of symmetrical tomato. They tend to not split and crack quite as much as the other heirlooms. Here's one that's pretty hard still, but it's going to mature over the next couple days. And here's an example of one that's really ready to eat. It's a nice rosy color on the bottom. It's real soft. It should feel kind of about like your forearm in the relaxed position. If you push on it, it should feel about that type of texture. That's how you kind of know it's ready to eat. But the most important thing about these heirlooms is after you get them home, don't put them in the refrigerator, because anything below 50 degrees starts to kind of alter the flavor of them. In fact, we see this even in the fall when the nights start to drop below 50 degrees. The flavor is still good, but it's not quite as good as it was. And if you put them in the fridge, it's really cold for them. So try not to do that. They'll ripen best outside of the fridge, just sitting on your counter. And then one other thing is we get a lot of splitting that happens with all the tomatoes, especially if there's a lot of rain. Sometimes it's just unavoidable. We can't harvest them early enough or whatever. When they're split, they're still really good to use, but you just need to use them the same day that you get them. So they won't hold, but they've got great flavor, and there's a lot of really good tomato to work with there. So you'll probably get some that are split throughout the course of the year. Don't let that bother you. Just go ahead and use it anyway, and you'll find there's a lot of good tomato there. So thanks, and we hope you guys really enjoy the tomatoes this year.